Alright, this is Mark. I said I'd make a another video about, doing a LS swap in a Z31. So, I just want to preface it by saying, the VG is a capable engine, good for 500 wheel horsepower or more on a stock bottom end. So this is my VG before I did the LS swap. It just has a gutted Maxima plenum, a big turbo, Borg Warner 62mm billet turbo. With this setup, it made 483 to the wheels on pump gas and about 490 foot-pounds of torque. So, they're capable engines, but I mean, if you want more after that, or you just want more low-end torque, the LS is definitely the way to go. In this video, I'm going to be talking mostly about a turbo LS because that's what I have. So, first off, you can buy these bolt-on motor mounts from Dirty Dingo. They're $160. You probably want to get them powder coated though, unless you want to modify them for some reason. So with this one, you have to use the F-body oil pan. You can find them like $100 on Rock Auto or like eBay. This says the stock steering has to be modified to clear a driver's side exhaust manifold. I never had to deal with that because I flipped my manifolds over to run a turbo, so I can't speak to that. And it also says you can't use the factory turbo cross member, so I actually just got a NA cross member to use mine, but I have seen a couple guys use these ICT billet like slider mounts to use the turbo cross member with these. That's that's a little janky. I don't know if I'd do that, but that's an option if you're willing to do that. So I'll move on to like the cooling system. So for the upper hose, I got one of these. I don't know if this part number is right. I just found this looking around. It looks like this though. It's like a flexible radiator hose. And I'll just pull up a picture. It looks like that. And then I have this little I got this off Amazon. It's like a radiator cap housing. This side's 1.5 inch, so it goes right into the stock radiator, and this side's 1.25 inch, so it goes right into the water pump. LS water pumps are 1.25 inch up here and 1.5 inch on the bottom. The bottom you can just run a stock hose. And then I ran, this right here is the steam vent line coming off the heads. They're blocked off in the rear, and the front has the crossover tube. Some people say, the 4-port LS steam vent is better, but I've had no issues with just the two blocked off in the rear and then the front crossover steam vent tube. For a radiator, I would recommend getting like a Champion, just because you don't want to have cooling issues. I actually have the Champion. I think I actually have the 2-row. You can get the 2-row or the 3-row from Past Power Innovations. Zach owns this site. He's good. I've never had any problems with him. I got my S13 subframe swap kit from him too. Great site supporting the Z31 chassis. And then you should get like an electric fan. You could maybe get the like stock clutch fan off like a truck or something to work, but I wouldn't even bother. Electric fans are just nice to have. It saves a little bit. It frees up a little bit of horsepower, but not much. But I definitely recommend getting an electric fan. This is like what I have. It's off a 89 to 95 Ford Taurus 3.8 liter, I think. Yeah, and it's actually a 2-speed fan. I just have it wired to the low speed, and that's still, moves plenty of air. I have no overheating issues whatsoever. So yeah, it's a good thing to get instead of using the clutch fan. Now I also have this LOJ heater bypass block. So basically, here's a good picture. What this does, it allows coolant to recirculate through the heater lines when your heater's off, because on a Nissan like the Z31, when your heater's turned off, it just blocks these two passages, so the coolant can't circulate through. So this allows that. You know, some people say it's not necessary. Plenty of guys have just blocked off their heater ports or whatever, but I mean, I think it's worth getting. Alright, so next I'll talk about some exhaust stuff. So what I did is I just took the stock truck manifolds, because I got a 5.3 liter truck engine. I just unbolted them. You know, a lot of times you have to deal with like a broken exhaust bolt or something. I just used a map gas torch and pliers, like a C-clamp, not C-clamp, but like clamp-on pliers to, you know, spin it and get it out. Sometimes you'll deal with those exhaust bolts broken off. Yeah, but I just flipped the truck manifolds over. The 3-bolt flanges on the truck manifolds actually hit the frame on the Z31 when you flip them around, so you're going to have to cut those off and weld on V-bands or something. So you can see here I welded on a V-band. Not the best welds because I was learning to weld, but you know. So see, this is like where it hits the frame. So you just cut that off, put on a V-band. This is a 2 1/4 inch. And then there's a flex bellow that's off like a Duramax. I don't recommend I recommend these hard ones. The ones with like the meshy kind of stainless steel wire around them, those tend to break and blow out. I'd either run it solid or run one of these nicer bellows if you don't want to have any issues in the future. But yeah, and then it just goes over into the turbo, like right here, comes up. I redid this since because it was kind of, I didn't like the way it ran, but it comes up in the turbo. I know it's got the booger welds, and turbo sits up here, and then my downpipe goes through back here. This is a T4 flange. You can easily fit like a VS Racing 7875 like I have right here. Other people have run like S480 turbos and things like that. So next I'll talk about like ECU options. So I use the MS3 Goldbox. Here's one for sale on the marketplace around me. Greenwood, Delaware. This one's $900. That's actually what I paid for mine, but I've seen them as low as like $700. Or if you wanted to go with like a micro squirt, I see them for like $350, $400 with an LS harness all the time. So that's a really nice cheap option. So yeah, this has the plug and play harness, so you literally just plug it all in. It fits the LS stuff. You know, if you have different injectors or something, you might need to cut those and wire in new ones, but other than that, it's pretty much just plug and play. You just have to wire up like a 12-volt battery constant. You have to wire up your fans, your fuel pump, a switch 12-volt source, and you know, whatever else you want. These ECUs can do a lot. So if you wanted like traction control and all that, you have to wire that up 2-step. So I have my 2-step wired to my clutch pedal. So when my clutch pedal is depressed, it activates the 2-step. So that's nice. They also have like these. These are, I think these have a few more features than the Goldbox, but you know, here's another one, $1,000. It comes with the LS harness. Yeah. So these are, I like the Mega Squirt stuff, and I know how to get the Mega Squirt stuff to work with the stock gauges. You know, the if you use like a stock ECU off a GM engine and use HP tuners and stuff like that, you know, I've never done that. I don't know how to get all the stock gauges to work, but I have experience with this. Yeah, so I can get all the stock gauges to work with this stuff, and I'll kind of go over some of that now. So for the Tach, I actually have one of these. This is DIY Auto Tune. They make the Mega Squirt stuff. So this is just a Tach converter for the. It'll work for the Z31. Yeah, see Japanese cars through the 80s. It fits the Goldbox. It'll fit the Micro Squirt. You know, anything Mega Squirt based. The Micro Squirt, the Goldbox, the MS3 Pro. But yeah, and look, it's even got a little wiring diagram here, nice and easy. You just wire that up, your Tach signal in, your Tach signal out to the dash, and it just works. You do have to go into Tuner Studio and change some settings, but that's not that big of a deal. I can actually bring that up right now. Show you what my settings are for that, and for the speedo too, if you're interested in that. Tach output. So this is what mine's at. It's scaled at 75%. It's variable. That's just the output, the wire that you're using as your output. I just use the Taco output wire. And then for my speed sensor, this is what I have. So this will be different. This might be different for you. You can change this down here. I actually have the nitrous output for my VS signal. So I have a TR6060, and it actually has, for some reason, you know, it was a TR6060 out of a Camaro, but was converted to a T56 Magnum, and for whatever reason, the guy used a Ford sensor. So most GM sensors, this would be 17. It has 17 teeth on the reluctor wheel to tell the speed, but a Ford has 12, so I have 12. I just left all these settings the same, you know, changed my wheel diameter. This is my final drive ratio. I'm going to change that eventually, but yeah, you can also do gear detection, so it knows what gear you're in. So you just put in your gear ratios here, and you can do all that. But yeah, this is what you'll be adjusting to adjust the speed down here. Pulses per mile is what I used, and it's about 25,000 for my setup to read speed correctly. So yeah, I want to talk about the fuel pump. So if you're NA, you know, you'll be fine with like a Walbro 255 and just, you know, the stock 5/16 fuel lines on the Z31. But if you want to do a turbo LS, you probably want to go bigger than that. I ran 8AN lines all the way from back in my fuel tank. I modified the fuel hanger. Let me see if I can find my picture of that. Here's my fuel filter. I used a Racetronics fuel filter. Matt Dexter from the Facebook groups, he helped me with a lot of this. You know, I kind of copied a lot of his setup, but this is an 8AN line coming in, 8AN line going out, goes up to the rails. Yeah. Here's more pictures of that. It's just mounted underneath the car. And this is my fuel pressure regulator. Just a Tomei Type S, nice and cheap. Haven't had too many issues with it. It leaked a little bit at first, but I just tightened down the rails and the fittings, and it worked. So now I'll start talking about transmissions. So this is originally what I did. I had a Z32 5-speed, because, you know, I had the Z32 5-speed on the VG, and I was like, man, this thing's taking, you know, almost 500 wheel horsepower, no problem. You know, I'm good. I can use it on a turbo LS, no problem at all. And that's kind of my thinking. But what you don't realize is the LS, it's a V8. You know, it's a much bigger engine. Mine's a 5.3 liter, almost double the size of the stock engine, so it has a lot more torque. So eventually, you know, I broke first gear in it, and that's when I decided, you know, I'm gonna have to find something else. So this is, I mean, some guys run this transmission with a turbo LS, no problem. I know one guy, Jesse, on the Facebook groups, he's running it. He says he doesn't have any issues, but I kind of would recommend against it. A lot of people also use the AR5. This is the transmission found in like the Chevy Colorado, the Canyon, the GMC Canyon. It's the same thing, both the trucks. The Pontiac Solstice, the Polaris Slingshot, the Saturn Sky. They're pretty readily available, and you can see this is out of stock, but $900, and it comes with, you know, the adapter, the clutch kit, the flywheel, the lines, the transmission fluid. Looks like it has the pilot bearing and all that. And this kit is good for 500 wheel horsepower, this clutch. So, you know, this is a good option. There's more options on their site too. And here's a stage 3, 650 foot-pound, so that'd be pretty good for most Turbo LS builds. Looks like it comes with the slave and everything too. You know, you can also do like a CD09. I personally don't like that transmission, but a lot of guys run it, no problem. The T56 and the TR6060 I think are the best option if you want to do a manual, but you know, I understand they're not cheap. So this is what I got. I actually got this used. I didn't buy it new off this site. It was like new used. I got a good deal on it. But this is what I used. This is actually made for a 240SX, but it'll fit a Z31. You'll notice a lot of stuff made for the Z32 or the 240SX will fit a Z31. So I use this this master cylinder. It has an adapter to mount it to the S13. Like I said, this adapter here fits the Z31, so you can mount this up. You just have to change out this push rod in the clutch master. You just have to switch that out to the one, your stock one. But it has the bleeder lines and all that. So that's what I used to easily use the TR6060. You can't use the stock clutch master because it's actually a 5/8 inch bore, and this one's a 3/4 inch. So the 5/8 inch clutch master cylinder just doesn't move enough fluid. You can see 0.75, so 3/4 inch bore there. So for mounts, moving on, a lot of these 300ZX mounts, like I use this T56 mount for my TR6060. And all I did was drill a couple holes. One hole actually lined up, I think it was this one of these over here, actually just lined up, and then I drilled 3 holes, 2 over here and then 1 over here, or something like that. This T56 mount fits a TR6060. So yeah, a lot of this stuff will just bolt on if you drill a couple holes in it. That's nice. If you wanted to do like an automatic, I wouldn't really recommend the 4L60 unless you're only doing an NA build. They're kind of weak transmissions. The 4L80E will fit, but it needs a lot of modification, hammering the transmission tunnel, cutting a lot of stuff out. The TH400 will fit relatively easily. I know a lot of guys use those. Let me see if I have... I think I have a picture of someone's build where he fit a... Yeah, this guy tried to fit a 4L80E, and you see it's like, it's really tight. He said most of the problems he ran into was the transmission pan. Didn't want to fit. So yeah, I mean, these Z32 mounts are easily adapted, but I mean, you can make your own. I tried making my own. It didn't turn out so good. But if you're a good, decent fabricator, you can do that. For a drive shaft, I went to Shaft Masters. They're awesome. They're located out in Michigan. I've had them make like quite a few drive shafts for me. Their turnaround's really fast. You know, they made it within like 2 days. You see, they make 300ZX drive shafts for the Z31 and Z32. And then I had them make quite a few drive shafts for me out of aluminum. They make steel and aluminum. Aluminum's a little lighter. It's not much more money, so that's why I went that route. But you know, they can even do a lot of custom stuff. Like I have a 350Z differential, right, and a TR6060 transmission. So, but it has a T56 Magnum tail housing. So I needed a T56 Magnum slip yoke to a 350Z differential flange. And I just told them that. I told them the length I needed. Like, hey, I need I think it was like 24 inch or 26 inch, something like that, with a T56 Magnum slip yoke and a 350Z differential. They said, okay, no problem, give us a couple days, and then, you know, boom, I was on my way. No problem. So, one last thing I'm going to talk about, which a lot of people, you know, sometimes overlook, is the supporting mods for an LS swap. So, you know, when you add a lot of power to your car, or you know, even like just the weight of the iron block up front, it's about 100 pounds heavier. You want to get coilovers for the front to support that extra weight. If you have the stock springs, it's gonna sag like pretty bad. And yeah, and like I said, when you add a lot of power to your car, you should look at other things like brake upgrades and things like that. So this is what I used for my front brakes. They're for an S13, but like I said, a lot of S13 stuff fits the Z31. These will fit the Z31. I have the 87 to 89 turbo front hubs, which allow you to use a slip-on rotor like these. You don't have to do that. You can use like 84 turbo hubs, which I originally had, or NA hubs, whatever, and grind them down to make the slip-on rotor part, this part, fit over your hubs. Yeah, but I mean, I just preferred using the 87 turbo front hubs. It makes things easier. The only thing you have to worry about with these is you have to, I had to use like a couple washers to space the caliper over the rotor correctly, but that's not that big of a deal. You can see the size difference here. These are what I originally had, Z32 front calipers and rotors, and you can see the CTSV ones are just huge. Like that's a 11-inch rotor. This is like almost a 13-inch rotor off the 350Z. These ones right here, the track pack rotor. Yeah, you just have to flip this crossover tube to the bottom and put the bleeders up on top, because they mount differently on the CTSV than the Z31. But it's really easy to adapt. You can use your stock banjo brake lines on these. Another thing you probably want to look into is wheels for sure. I mean, like I said, the LS has a lot of low-end torque. If you have stock wheels, you're just gonna blow the tires off. Even like 8-inch wide wheels, I had trouble. A 255 tire, I had trouble, you know, getting traction. And I'm not even making crazy amounts of horsepower. I'm making like 600 to the wheels. And I had 8.5-inch wide wheels on the back with street tires, like summer tires, so they were performance tires, but still, 255 tire, it just would not get any traction in first through third. I mean, it would hook a little bit, but not like I wanted. So I eventually went up to 9.5-inch wide Race Star wheels and a 295 tire, like a drag radial, Mickey Thompson drag radial, and they actually hook. So I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, other than that, you know, you want to support the weight of your, or support the power of the car and not kill yourself. So that's about it for the Z31 LS swap. If you have any questions, you can just, you know, comment down in the video or message me. Try to help you out. Alright, thanks for watching.